Brice Sensabaugh drops a career high. Taylor Hendricks shows some flashes. The Jazz are right with the Kings. Then they weren't. We're talking about it next. Coming up on POSTCAST here from Sacramento.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
David Locke along with Ron Boone as the Utah Jazz fall tonight to the Sacramento Kings 127-106. Night straight loss, 20th in the last 23 for the Jazz, but a lot of bright spots in this one. There have been some ugly games on the road. The road has been a tough place for the Jazz tonight. Really very different. A 21-2 run by Sacramento for a 4 or 5 minute stretch was the difference in the game. For the other 44 minutes, the Jazz really played right with the Kings. By the way, for those who are live with us, if we have any audio issues, please tell us. We just worked on it to make it sound better, and I think we've got it done. So let us know. Ron, let's start with Brice Sensabaugh. We've been waiting. He really, I think, admirable. He came off his worst game of his career. He was 0 for 7 from 3 the other night, 0 for 8. Will Hardy was talked about it in the pregame. Said, hey, I went back and looked at the 7 shots. I liked all of them, so I don't have the process and whether we're taking the right shots. I can't ask Brice. I'm not going to get mad at Brice and say, hey, put the ball in. He's trying. He wants to make it. Tonight he looked good.
He looked good. He took some good shots, and I was glad to see when he made his first shot and then makes the second one. Now the confidence level starts to definitely start to pick up. But I think one of the things is that we'll give him a chance to, work through things. He spent 33 minutes on the floor tonight, which is the most, obviously, that he's played all season long. And once you get those minutes out there on the floor and you continue to do the things that you do best, and if you're talented as he is, things are going to start to work out for you.
There was one thing that I thought Will let on to pregame tonight. I don't know if he totally meant to, but I caught it, so we're going to talk about it. He said, and I can find my notes, so it's going to be close. He said, I liked his shots. I like where they came as off, and his footwork was mostly good. We're working on that. And I thought it was a good reminder that, not only are these young kids having first-time experiences, but we're sitting here they're working on their footwork. They're changing aspects of their game, and then they're expected to go up against the world's best athletes. If you're watching any March Madness, it takes some of these guys so long to get a three-point shot off, and it's great, good, but they could never. I mean, I watched today. That was my number one reaction. Like, oh my gosh, that guy it took him an hour to get that shot off. He would never get that look in the NBA. You don't get, and so you might be able to do that in college. You get your feet, you move them around, you get the shot off, but not here. And so you've got these guys, Ron, that are working on specific skills and thinking about those, and trying to play in games they never played against.
Makes a big difference. Makes a big difference in rhythm, in the type of shot that you get off. And just think about the different ways to shoot the basketball on the catch. And when you catch the basketball, there's a certain little movement with your feet to catch and shoot. Off the dribble. How about the go and catch? Those type of things. And knowing when to apply those to your offense is probably the key there, and that's what Will was talking about. But footwork is everything, because it puts you in rhythm there as well.
It's interesting. We always like golf analogies. It would be like taking a lesson and having 18 scheduled the next day, and you're not sure what to do. Like, do I do what I got taught yesterday? Or would I go back? I mean, I know I'm not great, but maybe I'm what I'm comfortable with. And so I think you see that a little bit. There was Brice had to travel today, I think, which was probably one of those times where he had shifted his footwork to where he's been working on it with Will and the coaches. And then to get into his dribble, he actually shifted his feet because he didn't shoot. And I'm guessing that's probably what happened on that one. So this is, I think a lot of these things we're evaluating these rookies. We're watching them every minute. But boy, some of these things are really much more difficult than we think about and understand what they're going through right now.
Well, he gets a chance to work on those things with the coaches. I mean, with the developmental coaches, that's what they're there for. He gets a chance to work on those. Now, just think about, David, when you were in basketball camp, when you were a kid, if they teach you things in camp, and if you don't go home and practice those things, you will come back and you're right back where you started from. So I think that's where he was at. And right now you can see that at least tonight anyway, that he's picked up on things.
I think my Will Hardy question to open the press conference will be, you mentioned Brice Sensabaugh's footwork. How much do you work on things and expect them to be able to implement them immediately? And that, because I think that's an interesting concept. Tonight, Brice ends up with a career-high 22 points tonight, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He really played well. He had some really great passes, threw a hook pass to the corner, made some nice plays. Really, Brice looked very, very good today. Jazz trailed this game 27-23 at the end of 1. It was 56-52. They actually had tied it at 52 and then just made a really bonehead play. Brice honestly made it. And Keontae, it was just really, if you ever want a reminder of how young these guys are, Sacramento scored. Brice was inbounding. He forgot he could run the half court. He could run the baseline. He was on the far side. Keontae was on the near side. Didn't ever come to the ball. Walker, for whatever weird reason, just stood out of bounds the whole play as though he didn't want the ball or something.
Or he's afraid of getting in the way.
Or 4 seconds left. He didn't want to get in the way. So he stood out of bounds. And then Brice threw the inbound pass across the entire paint. It got intercepted for a layup by De'Aaron Fox. And I'm not hey, it was a terrible play, but it was also just a reminder of hey, how can you get 3 youngsters to all brain cramp at the exact same time? It happens. The Jazz tied the game at 58, and then Sacramento won on a 21-2 run, then played even after that. So really a pretty good night. You said it in your open. We're going to watch the young kids. What did you see out of Taylor tonight?
Well, what I did, I really loved him. I loved him, and he was moving. And in that one play that I brought up on how you relocated.
Oh, that was a great play.
And did not wait on, the ball to come to him. I mean, by relocating, you create passing angles and movement of your offense, and he did a great job of that. Ended up getting a 3-point shot.
Can I interrupt you?
Side the floor. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just thought you were going to go to something else. I want to go back to that because I watched a lot of Taylor at University of Central Florida, and my reaction to him was that when I watched him, I was like, oh, he'll be drafted in the top 10. He can run. He's 6'9". He can do all these things. And I thought he was a good weak side defender. And he kind of had an instinct defensively. Offensively, I literally thought he got in the way of every single play. I think I even sent you video where I was like, oh, my gosh, this guy gets in the way of every play. He has no floor spacing concepts. He just doesn't understand the game yet. And then we saw it when he started playing here. So think about the growth of that. That play is representative of just all of the growth of how much he's understanding, how much Wojo's working with him in Salt Lake Stars, and him to understand how to floor space, what the systems are, where you're supposed to be on the floor. It's a beautiful play.
He's learning. He's 19 years old. This is not high school. This is not college. And everybody has a scrapbook here, and so you're trying to get where they are. And so by doing that, you have to pay a lot of attention. There was a lot of work out there on the floor, a lot of concentration, and the big thing here is learning. I don't want to say schemes, but what you're learning is the different types of defense and what you should do.
Taylor had a career high as well. I think he had 18 tonight, 3 rebounds, an assist tonight, 16 of 11. Defensively, I do think Will's probably, I'm guessing, I'm not always right on this. I thought there were a lot of plays where Taylor ended up really far away from his guy for wide open threes tonight. I don't know if there was a defensive scheme there, but I will just point that out that just, we have a tendency to look at the offensive box score. Will's going to probably look at it a little differently. I just felt there were a lot of times where Taylor was coming from really, really far away on a closeout, making me think that he might have gotten lost in the system a little bit. Could be wrong. I do not know what to do about Keontae, and here's why. The numbers for Keontae in games where Lowry doesn't play are so poor, and I get it. Yeah. He's just nowhere near ready being the number one option. Obviously, Collins the number one option. But there is really something, what Keontae needs to do if he's going to try to play point guard right now is be on the floor with Jordan and Lowry, and we may not see Jordan again this year. It's pretty clear we're not seeing Lowry again this year. So I'm a little hesitant to, on a nightly basis, sit here and be 4 of 14, 3 of 10. Now, there's no question the ball needs to go in the basket at some point. I love the 7 free throws. I do want to ask you one thing about Keontae shooting. We're watching him miss in different places. So there was a straightaway 3 missed wide right. He in really far right, hit the outside of the right rim. He had a 3 that he missed really deep. He's missing by a decent amount. It's not like it's rattling and popping out. Does that tell you anything about his shooting?
It would start to concern me if I was a coach, knowing that you're missing in a variety of places. But then if you start watching film and then you start watching the footwork, if he's floating one way or the other, and then when you float, you got to try to make up for that. And, you just for the most part, stay offline. He has a lot to learn. He really, if they want him to be that player, he still has a lot to learn.
All right, and what'd you see out of Walker tonight?
I like Walker. I like his aggressiveness. I like how he fought back. It was like he took the afternoon thinking about Sabonis going to try to bully me. I'm not going to let him do it. He fought back and he caused Sabonis to use his footwork, which he does very, very well. He just didn't bully him all the way to the basket. I really like that.
7th game that Walker's played Sabonis. These are, at some point, you start to add these up, right? This gets to be, okay, I know what I'm coming. I know what I got. I can think about it during the day. Those kind of things. All right, Jazz lose it tonight. 127-106. I don't have a lot of takeaways on the Sacramento Kings. They were desperate for a win. They got it done. Who are your stars tonight?
I'm going with the young kids. I mean, the Sensabaugh and Hendricks.
Sensabaugh and Hendricks get the stars tonight. Lacey, chalk it up right there. Colin Sexton, I believe, was our leading scorer with another 22-point game. That's 11 straight for Colin. Over 22. How many assists did Colin have tonight? Just 4.
Four assists, yes.
I think he'd had a streak of 5 or more along the way for them. By the way, I'll give Matt Law credit. He made a comment in the chat room I just saw about how incredible Donovan was at working on things and then integrating them into his game like the next day. Ron and I used to do on the floor during that. We'd literally watch Donovan work and then put it in. That is a unique skill. That is why Donovan is one of the 15 best players in the NBA.
And he had to learn. He had to learn. You remember the first ball game that he played? You remember his comments, how nervous he was because he was thrown into the starting lineup. And
yes. Remember, by the way, go back and look at some of Donovan's early games. They were pretty ugly. We think he was all perfect, but he was great by the end of that year. Donovan will be in the house on Tuesday, so make sure you get tickets to come out and see him at UtahJazz.com. Jazz Plus has a bunch of great content for you as well. In the meantime, we now send you the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV, as are many of the Locked On podcasts over at Amazon Fire TV. Have a great night. Happy Easter.